Okay, so welcome to Adobe Illustrator Part 1 and our introduction. And so now I'm assuming if you're watching this, you already have your Adobe Creative Cloud account created. All right, and you also have a folder on your desktop to be able to save work when it's time to submit it to Google Classroom. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to click on that cutest rainbow app ever. We're going to find Adobe Illustrator. You can just go ahead and click on Illustrator, or you can click on Open. All right, it says Open Illustrator, select the app. If you don't want to see this again, go ahead and click that. Either way, go ahead and hit Continue. And it's going to open up Adobe Illustrator, and it did that. I have this screen expanded, so that's why we don't see it. Let's see if it's underneath there. There it is. Okay, so right now it says we're home. Okay, you probably see some work here. That's from other students. You cannot access it. They have their own account. It's because we share devices that you're allowed to see it, but you cannot actually edit their work. Your files eventually will show up here. If it gets a little confusing with everybody else, you can go ahead and click on your files, and you will see just your work that you have permission to access on the Creative Cloud. Just a gentle reminder, you are on the internet right now. You're on a cloud. This you will save to your cloud while you are working, while you're in progress, and then when you're done, we will have to download them to your actual machine. Reminder, Google and Adobe are not friends. We're talking about two multi-billion-dollar companies, and they don't work together. Okay, so if you need to submit something to Google Classroom from Adobe, you're going to have to use your computer as a go-between. Yay! And that's why we have that folder on your desktop. So let's get started. Enough talking, Mrs. Fitz. Let's get started. All right, there's a couple things you can do in Adobe. Like I said, if you're working on an existing file, you find it here or your file, so you can go ahead and click on that, and you can work on it. All right, but we're going to click on New File, and I'm going to show you how to set this up. All right, don't get overwhelmed, because this you can go ahead and there's like a lot of like templates and things like that, or like sizes that are predetermined. But I think it's best as a new designer, so that you can fully understand this stuff, to go in and do it manually, which we are doing, or I am doing right now on my practice file. So we'll just call this practice file. All right, I'm going to make this a 3 by 3 inch square. All right, if you are not familiar with square or inches, you can go ahead and use centimeters, and I don't think anyone is using pixels. We are snobby Americans, a lot of us. We use inches right now. That could change as a professional designer as you go on with your career, but send me an email, let me know. All right, we only need one artboard. That is what's really cool about Adobe Illustrator, is that we can have multiple artboards. Think of them as canvases. I like to think of them as white pieces of paper, but they can be any size you want. You can change all of this. But color mode, right now, since we don't know if this is going to go on the web, is it going to be a digital file, is it going to be something printed, we go with the safe bet, and we just do CMYK color. Okay, CMYK color versus RGB color mode. All right, we don't want RGB, we want CMYK. We talked about this in class. And then our raster effects, yes, we know that Illustrator can be scalable, but we still want to keep it at the highest amount just in case we ever have to change a file. So 300 ppi. Make sure you always have a name. You cannot submit anything to Google Classroom. And you know what? I'm going to be really smart, and I'm going to put my first and last name on everything so that I get full credit and stays really nice and organized. So we're going to go ahead and hit Create. All right, and there is our artboard. I'm going to go ahead and just reset my artboard, or you know what, actually I'm going to do that a little slower, because a lot of you guys might have defaults from previous kids. All right, so let's go to Window, okay, which is up here. You really aren't in Adobe Illustrator going to do too much with this stuff over here, because it pops up windows on your actual artboard. So don't get overwhelmed, but we are going to go to Window, we're going to go to Workspace, and we're going to make sure we have Essential Classic Workspace. That just means all of the presets are just a little friendlier to us and what we're going to be doing. But we're going to go ahead and hit Reset It. Okay, and it should look something like this. Then you have your 3 by 3 inch canvas or artboard, and then we have our toolbar. You can move your toolbar by clicking on the little dashes there, and I highly suggest clicking on those little arrows so that it's a single column. I cannot stress this enough, especially as a new designer in Illustrator. The first two arrows are very different, very useful. You will use them all of the time. All right, but you just have to keep them in order. I find that when they are next to each other, kids get confused and they get frustrated, and we don't want you to be frustrated. Okay? So, next thing, if you don't see your rulers, Mrs. Fitz, I don't see my rulers. Well, I did give you a shortcut, hopefully, before this. If not, we can write it down, put it in our notebooks. Control R. Control R will turn your rulers. R for ruler. Mrs. Fitz, just show me where that's at. Well, we can go back to that window. And this is not efficient, but if you must do it this way, all right, we'll go to view, rulers, and then there it is. All right, so view. So now we got a new tab. We had window for our workspace, okay, our layout, and now we have view, rulers, and hide rulers, okay? This is why I don't make you guys memorize it, because even I know it's there. I know it's around there, all right? But I just have to sometimes click on a couple things to be like, oh yeah, it's underneath that column, all right? I know I can do it. Just keep asking questions. Google will answer your questions too. Did you know that? All right, Mrs. Fitz, this looks a lot bigger than 3 inches by 3 inches. Aha! That's because it's on your screen. Do not pay attention of how it looks, okay? Use math. And our rulers are telling us 3 inches. I got my handy dandy ruler here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to measure on the screen. And on the screen as it is right now, it's telling me it's almost 9.5 inches. It is not really 9.5 inches. I'm just zoomed in. Mrs. Fitz, how do you zoom in and zoom out? Great question. All right. On our toolbar, we have this lovely little magnifying glass. Okay. It's called the zoom tool. The shortcut is the letter Z. And it also uses the key Alt, the ALT key to be able to zoom back out. So I'm going to just go ahead and click on that tool because that's how we activate a tool. You have to click on it. All right, Mrs. Fitz, what's the shortcut? You said letter Z. Yep, if I am on my selection tool and which is the letter V, by the way. If I want my quick zoom, I hit the letter Z, watch what happens, and it jumps to that tool. So now that tool is selected, okay? And I can go ahead. Now, that tool has a plus sign, which means what? It's going to zoom in when I left click. Everything is left and right click. Okay? I zoom in. All right, Mrs. Fitz, how do I zoom out? That's where the Alt key comes in. I hold down Alt. All right, and I zoom out. Okay, so once again, I let go of Alt, and I just have the letter Z, and I zoom in. And then I hold down Alt if I want to zoom out, okay? An easier way, and the way that I do it, is Control plus and Control minus. Control plus on when you're on the direct select tool. I'm sorry, I was holding down Shift. That's why it didn't work. Control plus and Control minus, okay? Mrs. Fitz, how do I get this back centered? I need it centered. It's driving me nuts, okay? Do I just zoom out and that's how small I'm going to work? No, we don't work like that. We're constantly zoomed in as graphic designers. Okay, well, Mrs. Fitz, I see over here, I have a little toggle. That's hard to see. Yep, but you're right. I could just click and zoom this up and then Control minus, or you could go here and hit Alt, but that's so much work. Just use Control plus and Control minus. Okay. Control plus and Control minus, and I can zoom all about, and there's also one down here, but unfortunately, there it is, my little window. Okay, that's one way to do it. But, because we're Adobe, we have a fun little tool called the sticky hand tool. Okay, it's really just called the hand tool. I call it the sticky hand tool. All right, so that shortcut is the letter H. So when I believe so, it looks like it's the letter H. Oh, it's because I'm still on that tool. H, All right, I can then just move it around. It won't move anything on your artboard. When you start drawing letters, shapes, whatever, it won't do that. It just moves your artboard, your first artboard. Okay? What's another cool thing? The space bar does the same thing. You don't even need the letter H. I believe maybe it was just so popular, people liked it, that they made that big space bar. So the space bar also is the sticky hand tool. Okay, so if I can zoom in, I'll hold down my space bar. And if I'm working on a section down here, all right, and then if I need to zoom in even more and hold down my space bar, and then there you go. Again, zooming in and zooming out is super important as graphic designers, as well as your rulers. Your rulers are super important. Again, Control R, on and off. Okay, so far we've got the how to zoom in, how to zoom out, how to move it around, how to turn on your rulers, and the last little piece in this video is how do you change the size of your artboard, okay? And how do you add more artboards? Okay, so here we go. This little icon right here is the artboard tool, or Shift O. I never use the shortcut on this one. I'm relatively new to Illustrator though, about four years or so maybe that's why. I just found it. I did what sticks with me. So if you're a shortcut person, go with it. So Shift O, I just go over here. Okay, when I click on the artboard tool, that means that I can change it to be whatever size. Okay, and you get a ruler, you get a width and a height. So if you want it, you know, a specific size, oh crap, I set it up the wrong size. Mrs. Fitz said 3x2. Don't exit Illustrator and create a new file, new artboard. Just click the artboard tool. All right, and the mouse, on your mouse, it has a roller. Can you see that? There's a little roller thingy. I don't think I can get it there. Oh, on my mouse, there's a little roller that I also use. All right, so that's very helpful too, to go up and down. Okay, and so I can make my artboard whatever size. So if you're designing something, let's just take this shape real quickly. I'll put a color in it. All right, and oops. And you know, like, this is all you need. You don't need all this extra space. So that's when I'll usually go into the artboard. I'll change the artboard size just to make sure it's just nice and neat. It's just clean. It's the way that you want to give files to people when you share work and whatnot. Okay. Now, Mrs. Fitz, I forgot that I needed to set up 3 artboards because I'm working on 3 different versions of this square rectangle. Okay. Do I need to exit and start all over? Nope, you do not. Okay. You can double click. All right, the artboard tool. All right, and it does give you all the different sizes and the names of the artboard, by the way. So if you knew you set up the wrong size of artboard, you can actually double click on it and say, oops, I was supposed to set that up 3x2. Okay, 3x2 inches, and you can go ahead and hit OK. All right, and now your artboard is 3x2 inches. But what you can't do with the artboard tool is add more artboards. That's only for each artboard. Mrs. Fitz, what'd you just say? I can have more artboards? Yes. I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to go to Window. I'm going to click on Artboards, and that is our first pop-out. And I don't know why lately these are, I need to, Window, Artboards. I don't know why everything is glued down. I used to be able to freely move things around. There must be a default, but it's okay. I just like moving my windows around, and I'm sure they're just locked to this, so I'm sure there's a button I can click, but we'll just leave it for right now. So this is artboard number 1, okay? So if I double click on it, I can give it a name. I'll call it Yellow Rectangle. Well, you don't have to, but you can go ahead, and then it stays nice and organized, okay? And now let's say I want a new artboard. Maybe I need to make a red rectangle, okay? I just click on the plus sign, all right? And I can double click there, and let's call this red rectangle, okay? And then let's get crazy, and let's make a blue rectangle layer, or artboard. It's not a layer. It's an actual separate file that can get by itself, all right? So I'm going to click off of this. my shortcut for V. I use this a lot. Okay, Mrs. Fitz, I hate that they're in a row though. I want the third one to go underneath the yellow rectangle. Well, my friends, that's what this is. Rearrange all artboards. So if you want 2 columns and how much spacing you want with them, all right, this is where you put it. You need to also say, I would say 99.9% of the time you want your artboard to move with that. You don't want it to just stay there. All right, and so I'll hit OK. And now, spacebar, zoom out. Mine are in the way that I want them, okay, to be. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly change this to the red. I don't like using swatches. I like choosing my own colors. Somebody else decided on those. So did you see that color mixer? There's swatches, but then I go here and then I can pick my own colors. Okay. And that, my friends, is how you use artboards and how to get multiple artboards. All right. But now, okay, and the rectangle tool was here. So we introduced ourselves to the rectangle tool kind of involuntarily, and you'll have to do the same just to show me that you can create files in Illustrator. And then the fill is here, so whatever color is here, once again, swatches, and we have the palette. You can mix, you can pick, you get the eyedropper tool, and then the stroke is here, so if you want a big old stroke, and then maybe if you get that, just go ahead and hit OK. You need to be on your selection tool, and you can go ahead and click a default. I don't really care what you do for your color and what you do for your stroke. All right, but now it's time to submit these in part 1. How do I get them from the cloud to your computer? All right, so there's 2 things you need to do. Number 1, you just save. Okay, this is just going to save it to the Creative Cloud. It says I'm out of storage because they give me like none, but it'll say Ann Fitzgerald practice file. Okay, and we'll hit save. Oop, and it can't end with a space because I always do that. Okay, and now it's just saved on Creative Cloud. It's still in Adobe. How do I get it now from my computer, from Adobe to my computer? And that's the next video.